This research started as a result of getting a lot of emails and inquiries in a short period of time from people describing pretty much the same kind of experience: a bedroom invasion by a dark entity that looked like a tall man wearing a cape or a coat, and often with a hat. These were terrifying encounters for people, and they were wondering, what is this entity? What does it want? How do I make it go away?
Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to delve into the dark, sometimes frightening world of shadow people. Now, a number of religions, legends, and belief systems describe shadowy spiritual beings or supernatural entities as shades of the underworld and other various shadow creatures, which have long been staples of folklore and ghost stories. There are many theories about where shadow people come from and whether or not they're even real. Skeptics note that seeing shadow people could simply be chalked up to sleep paralysis, heightened emotional states, or sleep deprivation, as people who have experienced these physiological and psychological conditions have noted a correlation, although, if I might add, that still doesn't fully explain why they're all seeing the same creepy kind of thing, right? But then there are the paranormal theories. These seem to resonate more with the people who have actually lived through the terrifying encounters and feel strongly that shadow people are more than just imaginary. Half of the paranormal researchers claim that shadow people are conscious, intelligent, interdimensional beings that can shapeshift into various forms and figurations and have the ability to move back and forth between dimensions, while the other half claim shadow people are of extraterrestrial origin. Now, there is no substantial proof of what these entities are and where they come from. In the professional field of clinical psychology, our own individual shadow is said to be that darker part of ourselves. Our shadow is our darkest thoughts, aggressions, and impulses that we keep hidden by our conscious mind. So are the shadow people a manifestation of our own subconscious thinking? And are we responsible for the existence of these beings? No matter what you believe these entities are, most who have encountered them say that they are pure evil and very real. What's alarming is the number of growing reports of encounters with these entities. The following stories have been sent in to us by our subscribers to share in this video. It's important to note that these are allegedly real encounters and were obviously deemed as real by the people who experienced them. So we ask that you please be respectful in the comments section below. House of Shadows. I became aware of the shadows shortly after moving into my house in New Jersey. My daughter's playroom was in the basement, and they were constantly complaining that they were always seeing something move out of the corners of their eyes. My youngest also said they hovered near the ceiling. In later years, I had my floral workshop in the basement and saw them constantly. It got to the point where I could talk to them with my mind, not that they ever answered back. They were black. We saw them all over the basement, but mostly along one wall, and occasionally saw them along the same wall on the first floor and in the kitchen near the back door. We did not see them anywhere else on the house or elsewhere on the property, but even when we did not get a glimpse of them, we were aware when they were present. Some of them seemed to have an evil presence. A few years after we moved in, I told them they were not welcome in the house and the evil presence seemed to go away. Still, we had an uneasy feeling about them. Not fear, we just accepted they were there, as several steps taken over the years to make them go away didn't work anyway. Only once after the evil ones were told they were not welcome was I aware they came back, and I'm not sure if they were evil or just upset. I will explain later. Only once did I see one clearly, but it happened in a split second, and I did not see it from top to bottom. I was walking through the breakfast room into the kitchen. The kitchen light was on in the corner. It was by the back door in front of the stove. I was startled. I thought someone had come into the house. It all happened very fast, but the light from behind it did not pass through as it would a shadow. It was short and stocky and appeared as a silhouette of a person. It had a head. There were no discernible features, including no eyes, shoulders, arms, and a torso. It disappeared too fast to take note if it had legs or feet. I sensed it was as surprised as I was and did not intend to be seen. Then, our house caught fire. It was a major fire that started from a shorted TV along the wall of shadows in the den. We were out of the house 6 months while it was repaired. About a week after the fire, I stopped by right before dark to pick up a few things. As I came onto the back porch and looked through the 6-foot hole where the picture window once was, I looked across the breakfast room at the basement doorway. I sensed 3 shadows near the doorway. It was almost dark outside, so I did not actually see them. I also got a very bad feeling about them and told them by thought that the evil ones were still not welcome in the house whether I was there or not. Then I turned and left without entering the house. I was quite rattled. Whether I had this feeling because I was also emotionally upset about the fire, I cannot say. The next day, I went back and it seemed the house was full of shadows, although I only caught a glimpse of them as usual, fleeing in the basement. And I'm not sure I really saw them as there were no lights on down there and the only light was from the window well windows. It was the only time I ever sensed that they tried to communicate. It seemed they were upset that we were not there because the house was all black. There was no light for them in the kitchen, and there were strangers in the house, the workers, every day. A few weeks later, burglars tried to steal the new appliances for the house. Everything was left in the kitchen by the back door. My daughters and I joked that they met up with the shadows and were scared off. Who knows? Signed, Mike. A dashing shadow. When I was younger, I lived in a ranch-style home with my mom and grandma. My mom and I had chosen to have our rooms in the basement, hers in the back corner, and mine in a sectioned-off area of the main living room recreational area down there. Her bedroom was connected both to her bathroom and the main living area, the bathroom door being in her room and the door leading to the living area being catty-corner with a door that led to the bathroom from the main living area. One night in particular, I remember playing with my Legos. I was probably 9 or 10, when I happened to look up at my mom's bedroom door. As I looked through that door, it became more and more apparent that there was something there. It had no facial features and was nothing more than a silhouette of a small person with really swooshy hair. After about a minute of looking at this shadow, it dashed into the bathroom via the door directly connecting the bathroom and the bedroom. In disbelief, I continued playing with my Legos when I felt something staring at me. As I looked up, I couldn't believe my eyes. The same shadow was now standing directly in the bathroom doorway. Now, I know it had no face, much less eyes, but it was staring, watching, perhaps even waiting. It almost immediately sprinted into my mom's room, at which point I sprinted up the stairs, tears of fear running down my face. After that instant, I could never be alone in the basement at night, and my bedroom was moved to one of the spare rooms upstairs. I wish I could say that this was the last of my experiences, but alas, it is not. This same shadow person followed me to several different houses, including the one I'm in now. Signed, Anonymous. It called to me, and I answered. I'm not usually one to talk about my situation, as it happened about 14 years ago. And anyone that I have gone out of my way to share this with immediately put a lot of discredit upon the topic. My spouse and close friends have always been the most intrigued. Only had one occurrence that I recall the most, and the others did not have as much substance behind it as this one did. When I was 14, I was sharing the basement recreation area with my stepbrother at the time. My parents had spent time building me a room in the basement at my request, but lo and behold, I slept most of the time out on the playroom, or whatever you wanted to call it. I didn't start sleeping in my room till I was probably 16. However, this instance further confirmed why I didn't. It was between 2 and 4 a.m. I don't recall the exact time, but I had originally fallen asleep on the floor next to the futon my stepbrother was sleeping on. He faced the wall and was heavily snoring to boot. I'd woken up and couldn't fall directly back to sleep, so I tossed and turned while the ambience of the TV kept spreading around the basement. Out of nowhere, I became completely stiff and unable to move my entire body but my neck and head. At this point, feet point to the wall and the TV behind me, I started to look around because I had become immediately filled with anxiety and fear. I was thinking of this being sleep paralysis at the time, until the next step took place. I laid there in silence, heavy snoring from my left. It felt as if someone or something was sitting on my body, restraining me by the shoulders, which, due to claustrophobia issues, freaked me out. I heard a very faint voice at first in the distance. "Josh, are you there? I know you're there." Eyes peeled wide open, trying to diagnose me being crazy at this point. It then spoke again. "Josh, can you hear me? I know you can hear me. Come to your bedroom." I continued to try and ignore it as I felt I was about to puke, and I was becoming really scared. In a much louder, gruffer voice, it spoke to me again. "Josh, I know you can hear me. Come to your bedroom." As if the biggest weight was off my body, I was immediately able to move, and I sat up in a split second and rose to my feet. This voice continued to call my name and demand my presence in my room. Like any unoriginal horror movie, I was pleading with my brain to not do it, but stupid me decided to make way to the bedroom. The door always remained shut, and as I put my hand on the doorknob, I hear one more time, "Josh, are you coming? Open the door." As I opened the door, I had a small basement window, at the time big enough to sneak out of the house, parallel to the doorway. As I slowly creaked open the door in a cold sweat, there was what appeared to be a dim-lit yellow eye shapes in the window in the shape of some sort of dark figure staring deep into my soul. Wide-eyed and terrified, I looked up and was locked on for about 30 seconds. They got brighter and became dim, and that repeated. I slammed the door immediately and bolted to the other end of the basement for the light and proceeded to rock back and forth because there was no explanation. My brother woke up in a panic as I was petrified. We went back in the room together and turned the light on, and nothing was there. Nothing was outside as we went and checked further. He stayed up with me for a bit until I fell back asleep, and nothing like that occurred again. I cannot advise whom, why, where, or what, but it has left the biggest impact on me to this day. I know the difference between dreaming and being in an altered state of mind, but this was the most real I have ever felt behind a paranormal episode. That voice makes my body tingle and hair on my arms raise every time I think about it. I feel good knowing that I'm not completely alone in this type of thing, and all I can do is hold on to the memory, as nothing has been explained or uncovered otherwise. Signed, Josh. I never had a name for them until now. So I never knew it was really a thing until recently, that there was a name for them. I've never, and hope that I never have, an experience with the Hat Man, but shadow people I've had one encounter with. I was probably about 14 or 15, babysitting for one of my parents' friends. Me and the kids were curled up on the couch watching TV. It's hard to explain because of how their living room was set up. The couch we were on was directly in front of the hallway, and the back bedroom was their room, and in front of us the big glass TV stand, and it reflected the couch, hallway, and doorway of their room. Their bedroom light was on, so I could see the beginning of their room, which I assume that's why the furniture was positioned the way it was, so the parents could easily see in their room. I remember feeling really weird that night, as I often did in their house. Scared, and I remember the youngest asking me, "What's that in my room?" I looked at the part of the glass that reflected into their room, and it was a shadowed figure. What was striking was that it wasn't like a smudge or misshapen. It was almost like a perfect outline of someone. I looked back at him and then back at the glass, and it was gone. Now, like almost fear-stricken, I looked behind me, and there was nothing. I remember this because the child actually saw it too, and then told his mother about it when she got home later that night. Not only that, but I had never experienced anything like it in my life, but just chalked it up to light bouncing off the glass wrong or some rationalization until I heard others talking about it. Signed, Mark. The shadow person. When I was a teenager, I was home alone one weekend and I was sleeping in my parents' room since there was a TV in there. Sometime around 2 a.m., I felt like I was being stared at from the direction of the hallway. I looked up and I saw a shadow person looking at me. It was weird because it was a pure man-shaped black mass and I could see him in the dark hallway. I'm guessing light from the TV helped. I sat up and stared back, but I was terrified. We looked at each other for probably 5 seconds, and then it turned and walked down the hall. A few seconds later, I heard a loud crash. I was so scared I turned the TV to the Disney Channel and stayed awake for as long as possible. When I woke up the next morning, I walked down the hall to the bathroom, and that's when I noticed a mirror that was hanging and had fallen off the wall and was shattered. My family still doesn't believe me, but I know what happened. Signed, Nancy. Mirror Man. When I was younger, there was a man at the top of my stairs. I used to go to the bathroom every night between about 12 and 3, and he would always be there. He was a shadow on a mirror. I was only about 4 or 5, but other people saw him too. He even tried to push one of them down the stairs. Since moving into the house across the road, though, I haven't seen or heard from him. I can't go in my old house upstairs because there's a very unwelcome and hostile feeling to it. I still can't work out who he is. I've also seen him in my friends' houses, and he just stands there, looking at me, although there's no face, just a shadow. Signed, Lauren. Unable to leave. I was only about 10 or 11 when I went to this house. It was daytime and the building was well lit. I looked into a few rooms and saw nothing out of the ordinary until I turned into a hallway. It was at the other end of the hall looking at me. Although it had no eyes, the feeling was undeniable. The shadow person and I watched each other for some time. I didn't think it was real, but then it started walking toward me slowly. I turned and ran. I looked over my shoulder and it had traveled about 7 meters in the split second I looked away. But when I had my eyes on it, it moved slowly. I got out of the house and looked at it again. It had stopped at the door, almost like it was unable to leave the house. It turned and walked back into the house. Signed, Courtney. Scared Skeptic. When my wife was pregnant with our daughter, we saw one in the house we were renting. I'd just gotten off the graveyard shift. We were chatting before going to bed, and my wife said she saw something in the back room. Our cat was on watch, perched on my wife's belly, occasionally growling. I was a big skeptic. That's a bunch of BS, etc. That morning, I started toward the back room with that attitude, and stopped in my tracks when both of us saw the hunched black shape move and turn to look at us with those horrible red eyes. I honestly wish I could say I didn't see what I did, but I sure as hell did. Still freaks me out. Signed, Dylan. Daughter's experience. Starting at 4 or 5 years old, when we moved into our house, my daughter has been afraid of our basement. She said that she could hear children laughing, weird sounds, and that the dark man lived down there. She also said that she had a ghost friend she called Bradley staying upstairs, and that Bradley keeps the dark man away from the top floor. When she was around 15, she was home with a friend, sitting on the couch watching a movie. Both she and her friend saw a dark shadow in the shape of an adult upper torso hovering by the front door. Within seconds of seeing the shape, it flew toward them and then straight down the stairs. My daughter said it was scary, but she's been more accustomed to bizarre happenings. The friend never came over again. Signed, Anonymous. I don't know what it is. This started happening to me about 1.5 years ago. One of my friends and I were walking to a friend's house and we were taking a shortcut. Then, out of nowhere, there was a shadow figure about as tall as me, which is 6 foot 3 inches. It had a tail like a wolf and was all black. When I first started seeing it, it had eyes about the size of 2 pennies. But as time went on, they got bigger and bigger. The last time I saw it, its eyes were about the same size as a lime. Not only that, they changed color. What scares me the most is the fact that the last time I saw it, it was about 2 months ago. It used to show up a few times a week, and its eyes were crimson, which is the aura color of hatred. I've been attacked by it before. Painful ear ringing, nausea, and dizziness. It might have gone away, but I think it might be planning something. Nothing has happened yet, just waiting for it to show up again. Then I'm going to banish it as best as I can. Signed, Cameron. Well, friends, there you have it. What do you think these beings are? Are they extraterrestrials? Are they demons? Are they from a parallel universe? Or are we actually speaking these entities into existence? Whatever the case may be, the paranormal experts we've talked to say it's best that you avoid making contact and do your best to ignore these entities. As always, we welcome your comments. If you have a story you'd like to share on the channel regarding shadow people or any paranormal or unusual experience, please email it to us at disappearanceof@gmail.com. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.